Welcome to the SOS podcast. It's your girl Tia back with episode 4. And today I'm switching the direction of the podcast. The first 3 episodes, episode 1 we was talking about creating your happy versus finding your joy. 2 we was talking about self-awareness, and 3 we was talking about core values. So I'm switching it up just a little bit because those were things talking about moving forward and how to better yourself, become a better version of yourself. And today we're going to backtrack just a little bit, and we're going to talk about trauma. And the reason I say we backtracking because we're addressing, recognizing, and coping with your traumas. Sometimes it's difficult to move forward when your past is still in your way. Your past sometimes can be your biggest obstacle. Most times we find ways to distract ourselves from our past issues. So again, this leads me to today's topic: addressing, recognizing, and coping with your traumas. Excuse me. What is trauma exactly? Trauma refers to your response following an event that psychologically overwhelms you, resulting in shock, denial, and changes in the body and mind. Traumatic events can cause individuals to feel intense fear, hopelessness, horror, and can lead to long-lasting psychological and physical effects. So, some examples of traumatic events include physical or sexual assault, domestic violence, natural disasters, accidents, and military combat. And all of these issues, all these different traumatic events can cause PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is something that they can be easily triggered by certain situations, and it can cause chronic stress. And even though those are some examples of traumatic events, trauma can also result from ongoing experiences such as emotional abuse, neglect, or again, chronic stress. And what is chronic stress exactly? Chronic stress is a consistent sense of feeling pressured and overwhelmed over a long period of time. Some of the symptoms of chronic stress: aches and pains, insomnia or weakness, less socialization, and unfocused thinking. You may not be able to think straight because you're stressed out about multiple things. Maybe you have too many things going on at one time, or you're not focused on the right things and it's really stressing you out. So you just got to pay attention to that. Be mindful. So those are some of those examples, right? And today we're talking about 2 ways that trauma can affect you, which is psychologically and physically. So right now we're going to talk about the emotional effects of trauma, which is the psychological way. So we're going to get into it. Everyone experiences and responds to trauma differently. Trauma can affect many areas of your life, including your emotional, social, and physical well-being. Some people have social anxiety. They don't like being around a lot of people. Maybe it's because they had a traumatic experience maybe when they was younger, or at the current age that they're at, where they don't feel comfortable around a lot of people. Trauma can affect your physical well-being because you're stressing yourself out. You're putting yourself in a position of being very uncomfortable. And it may be taking a toll on your body without you realizing it. And your body has a natural response to stress, and it may create inflammation. And high levels of inflammation can cause some serious diseases, some serious sicknesses, and that's not good for your health. So what are some of the emotional effects of trauma? Like, what happens when you've been traumatized by something? One of the things is intrusive thoughts. So those unwanted thoughts, those unwanted memories, images, impulses, and they can all be triggered by internal or external stimulation. So, for instance, an example of an unwanted thought or impulse, I would say, is a thought of you doubting yourself. Like, you know that you're capable of doing it, but you're like, oh no, I'm not sure if I can do this. Maybe you just started your fitness journey or something in the gym, and you're like, oh, I don't want to get up this morning. I don't think I can do this. I can't be consistent with it. You know you can be consistent with it, but you're just doubting yourself. A lot of the stuff is in our minds, and is something that we just have to be a little more mindful of our thoughts. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but that's why I'm here to help you work on those things. Another example of an intrusive thought is the concern of doing something embarrassing. True enough, nobody wants to be embarrassed. Nobody wants to look stupid. I don't know nobody that wants to look stupid. But you have to you can't care so much about what other people think. And even though you may have some trauma that may make you feel like you may do something embarrassing. Maybe somebody used to look down on you, or they used to talk down about what you do. So now you feel like you don't want to embarrass yourself, which is, it's okay to hold yourself to a high standard, but just realize that when you do those things, it's gonna take a toll on your body. So ways to work on coping with those thoughts, changing those thoughts, is mindfulness meditation. So what is mindfulness meditation? So it's basically observing your thoughts calmly without judging or being emotionally tangled up in them. Meaning you're not so focused on what the thought is. You're not denying your thought's presence, but you're changing your relationship with that thought. So you know that this thought is not a current situation. And again, intrusive thoughts are thoughts that pop up and it has absolutely nothing to do with what you have going on in the moment. It's like a flashback in a way. So by having this mindfulness meditation, it gives you a chance to observe what's in your mind without you paying too much attention to what the thought is, and more of it helps you pay attention to what the thought is versus just trying to address whatever it is going on in your mind or entertaining that thought. Another way is to say, this too shall pass. It's a simple mantra. You probably didn't heard it before, but it's to help regain perspective. It helps to get you out of your mind by saying, this too shall pass, letting you know that your thoughts are temporary. And you got to remember, thoughts are temporary. You think about something and then you may forget about it. Something easy. It happens a lot. And there's no such thing as a permanent state of mind. You cannot stay in one state of mind all day. You cannot keep the same thought all day long. Your mind does not work like that. It psychologically doesn't work like that. You're going to think about probably thousands of things in one day. But by saying this too shall pass, reduces the power of that thought. Whatever that negative thought is, saying this too shall pass will reduce that negative thought that you're having. Another emotional effect of trauma is a small window of tolerance. So feeling overwhelmed easily or having difficulty controlling your emotions. Sometimes we have people in our lives that may lash out, or maybe we may be the people that's doing the lashing out. But you have to be understanding, because sometimes some people may go through some things and they may not have control over it, but you can control your mental state. So practice deep breathing when you're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, and take a few deep breaths to help calm your mind and your body. So you inhale slowly and you exhale through your mouth. You can learn new coping skills like meditation, journaling, journaling, cognitive behavioral techniques, cognitive reframing, and that's basically taking a hard look at your negative thoughts and practicing social skills. So practicing getting out and talking to more people, or just being more social, talking to more people, engaging in more conversations, putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions to move a little bit differently. So those were those emotional effects of trauma. Now we're going to talk about the physical effects of trauma. One is inflammation and unhealthy habits. Those are the top two that we're going to talk about today. And inflammation is the first one. So trauma can lead to increased and long-term inflammation, which is an immune response to foreign invaders or damaged tissue. So that's like physical trauma. Say if you were in an accident or something, then that's that physical trauma. As well as if you put yourself in a position of being stressed out mentally, it'll also build up a lot of inflammation because there's a lot of invasive thoughts, there's a lot of invasive energy, and it's not gonna help your body at all. It's a main culprit behind like heart disease. Inflammation is the main cause behind heart disease. So you got to be careful of how you let things affect you, because not only is it affecting you mentally, but it's also affecting you physically. Another way is unhealthy habits like smoking, excessive smoking and drinking, especially when people do it to kind of like, they use it as a coping mechanism. Instead of addressing the issue, they kind of let the smoking or the drinking be their vice so they don't have to deal with it. A lot of people turn to substance abuse or unhealthy habits as a way to cope, like I said, cope with emotional and physical pain of trauma. However, these behaviors can lead to negative consequences and further intensify the issue. So, once again, when people use a substance as a coping mechanism for their trauma, they never truly heal from that trauma. And it leads to negative consequences because you're hurting your body, especially when you're doing excessive smoking and drinking. You're killing your organs, and other unhealthy habits, like maybe you may be overeating or something like that, and that can also play a role in your organs because it's tearing your body up. Honestly, that's what it's doing. Being aware of the behaviors and their root causes is an important first step in addressing your traumas. It's important to remember that healing from trauma is a process, and it takes a lot of time. But it's possible to overcome the negative effects and lead a fulfilling life. You just got to be willing to put in the work to get it done, but it's possible. So today we discuss trauma and the effects on your emotional and physical well-being. Trauma can cause people to feel fear, helplessness, or horror. The emotional effect of trauma is intrusive thought. One emotional effect of trauma is intrusive thoughts. Thoughts like doubting yourself or others. A way to cope with those thoughts is mindfulness meditation. So basically that's observing your thoughts and changing your relationship with them. A lot of times we focus so much on our external appearance that we don't recognize what we have going on internally. Take the energy to work on yourself internally, and the external image will show the results. This is the SOS podcast, encouraging you to become a better version of yourself, one episode at a time, bringing you closer and closer to the shore of happiness. Remember, we may not be responsible for the world that created our minds, but we can take responsibility for the mind with which we create our world. We're not responsible for the environments we grew up in, but we're responsible for the environment we create in our minds. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment from what you got from today's message. It's your girl Tia, and I will see you guys next week.